My name is Margaret Louise Tanner, and I'm 78 years old. I've lived in the same white-paneled house on Maple Street for over 5 decades, raised 3 children in it, buried my husband from it, and planted hydrangeas around its porch every spring since 1973. My hands are slower now, my knees stiffer, but I still keep it clean, cozy, and warm, the kind of home that smells like cinnamon and old books. But none of that mattered when I heard the knock. It was 6:43 in the morning. The sun hadn't risen fully yet, just a soft amber haze bleeding through the kitchen curtains. I was still in my robe making tea when I heard it. 3 sharp knocks, desperate ones. I shuffled to the door, a little startled. Nobody ever knocked that early, not unless someone had died. When I opened the door, I couldn't believe what I saw. There he was, Thomas Whitaker, my daughter's groom. Still in his tuxedo, crumpled and soaked in rain, eyes bloodshot, cheeks streaked with tears. His bow tie hung undone. His boutonniere was crushed, and his hands were shaking. "Mrs. Tanner," he choked. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know she banned you." He fell to his knees right on my porch. My teacup slipped from my hand and shattered on the hardwood floor behind me. I stood frozen, my mind racing, my heart pounding. "I can't marry her," he whispered, tears dripping onto the hem of my robe. "Not after what she did to you." And then he pulled something from his pocket. A handwritten letter. Folded, but torn at the edges. "It's from your daughter," he said. "She wrote this to her bridesmaids. I thought you should know." And that's when I saw the name they'd given me. Not Mom. Not Mother. Not even Grandma. Just one word: the help. And right there on my own front porch my world cracked apart. But how did it get to this? How did I, a mother who gave everything, time, love, money, become nothing more than the help at my own daughter's wedding? Let me take you back. To the beginning. To the first sign that my daughter was no longer the little girl who used to braid my hair and bring me dandelions from the backyard. Because the truth didn't start at the wedding. It started long before. When I loaned her the money to start her boutique. But wasn't invited to the ribbon cutting. When she got engaged. But told me she didn't want old people energy in her bridal shower photos. When she started calling me Mar instead of Mom. But I kept forgiving. Because that's what mothers do. Right? Until one day, I wasn't even allowed to sit in the pew. And if you think that's the worst part, let me show you what happened when the truth came out at the altar. And how, by the end of it all, I found the strength I never knew I still had. This isn't just a story about a wedding. It's a story about worth. And what happens when a mother is pushed too far. So stay with me because the real story is just beginning. And what Thomas did next, after handing me that letter, will change everything. Want to know what was written in that letter? I'll read it to you. In the next chapter. If this story has already gripped your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me. Have you ever been treated like the help by someone you loved? Let's talk in the comments. Next chapter is coming. I didn't take the letter right away. I just stood there, staring down at the paper in his trembling hands, feeling the wet morning air cling to my skin. My daughter's fiancé, soon-to-be ex-fiancé maybe, was kneeling before me like a man who had just seen a ghost. The pain in his eyes mirrored something I had tucked away for too long. The ache of being invisible in your own family. He pressed the letter into my palm. "I found it last night," he said, voice hollow. "One of the bridesmaids left her clutch on the dressing table. Fell out. I wasn't supposed to see it." I closed the door behind us and led him to the kitchen table. He sat like a broken boy, elbows on knees, while I unwrapped the letter with fingers that hadn't stopped shaking. The handwriting was undeniably my daughter's. It read, "Okay, girls. Make sure the help doesn't wander into the ceremony. She's known to show up uninvited. Someone keep an eye on her in the kitchen. I don't want any weird mom speeches or her crying in front of guests. Let her help with food if she must, but not near the altar. It's our day, not hers." I read it 3 times. Each word was a slap. Each sentence stripped another layer off the woman who once held that little girl through fevers and heartbreaks, who clipped coupons to feed her through college, who sold her antique jewelry to help her open that boutique she now flaunted on Instagram like she'd built it all on her own. I looked up. Thomas had tears running down his cheeks again. "I'm so sorry," he said. "If I had known, I never would have let it get this far." The words felt sincere, but they didn't dull the sting. I folded the letter carefully and slid it back across the table. "What are you going to do?" he asked. He stared at the table for a long moment, then said, "Tell the truth. And if she hates me for it, so be it." That morning, over stale toast and cold tea, Thomas told me everything. The things I never saw. The things I chose not to see. "She calls you a burden when she's drunk," he said softly. "Says she's only taking care of you out of guilt. She brags about how she's the family backbone now." I blinked hard. My own daughter, who I raised alone after my husband died in a car crash, talking like I was deadweight. He continued, "She lied to the planner. Told everyone you didn't want to come. Said you were too fragile to sit through a whole wedding. That explained the silence. The lack of an invite. The absence of even a dress code text. I had thought it was a mistake. It wasn't. It was strategy. Had been erased. But something in Thomas's voice sparked a strange fire in me. Not rage. Not revenge. Something more painful and more liberating. Clarity. After Thomas left, promising to return later that afternoon, I sat alone in my living room, surrounded by photographs of a family that seemed to exist only in frames now. I stared at one in particular. My daughter, aged 6, missing her front teeth, grinning proudly as I held up her first homemade drawing of a bride and her mother. How did we get from that moment to this? The house was quiet. But inside me, something had begun to shift. I stood up. I picked up the shattered pieces of the teacup on the floor. Slowly. Deliberately. And as I did, I realized something. I had spent years sweeping up after everyone else's messes. Maybe it was time to stop. That evening Thomas came back. He wasn't alone. And what happened next, what they both confessed, would change everything I thought I knew about my daughter's wedding. And about the kind of betrayal that leaves scars too deep for words. Want to know who walked in with him? You'll find out in the next chapter. If this story touches your soul like it did mine, please hit that like button, leave a comment with one word that describes how you feel, and subscribe to follow the rest. Something is about to break, and it won't be me. See you in the next chapter. The moment I opened the door, I knew something wasn't right. Thomas stood there again. His tuxedo replaced by a gray hoodie and slacks. But it wasn't his clothes that made my stomach twist. It was the young woman standing behind him. Early 30s, tall, elegant, with sharp eyes that didn't flinch when they landed on me. I didn't recognize her at first. Until she said, "You probably don't remember me, Mrs. Tanner. Alicia. Maid of honor." And then she pulled out her phone. "I couldn't go through with it," she said. "Pretending everything was fine. Pretending your daughter didn't say those things." I stepped aside, letting them in, my mind spinning. Alicia, my daughter's best friend since college. She used to sleep over at our house in her pajamas, eat my pancakes, call me Mama T. I hadn't seen her in years. Why now? Thomas answered the question I hadn't yet asked. "She knew," he said. "She's the one who slipped me the letter." Alicia nodded, her voice trembling now. "I kept quiet for too long. I watched her turn cold to you, watched her brag about keeping you out of everything. I thought maybe it was just stress, wedding nerves. But then she said she hoped you'd get too tired to show up. I felt like my legs might give out." She said that. About me. The woman who had held her through chickenpox and heartbreak and the nightmares after her father died. "She wanted to embarrass you," Alicia continued. "To punish you for showing up in that dress shop last month." That day replayed in my head instantly. I had stopped by her boutique with an old photo of my wedding dress, hoping she might help alter it so I could wear something special to her wedding. She smiled, took the photo, and never called me back. She'd used it as a joke, hadn't she? She made copies of it, Alicia whispered, shame burning on her face. She passed it around the bachelorette dinner. Said it was tragic vintage. I didn't laugh. But I didn't stop them either. A silence stretched between us, thick as grief. I sat slowly, staring at my own hands. Wrinkled, calloused. Hands that had worked 3 jobs to pay her college tuition. Hands that had written hundreds of checks without hesitation. She used to love me, I said, more to myself than to them. She still does, Thomas replied gently. But she loves herself more. And that's not your fault. I didn't respond. Because a part of me wasn't ready to forgive that easily. But then Alicia pulled out something else from her bag. A USB stick. I made a recording, she said, voice low. Of the rehearsal dinner. You weren't mentioned once. Not even a toast. She held it out to me. But I did. I raised my glass to you. For everything. Tears slipped from my eyes before I even realized I was crying. I hadn't heard anyone say something kind about me in so long. Not without conditions. I clutched the USB stick like a lifeline. And then Alicia said something that changed everything. She told the planner not to seat you near the family, she said. Said you were just the woman who raised her. Not the woman who made her. That did it. That snapped something in me. That very night I called my lawyer. Because my name wasn't just on the bridal shower cake. It was on the deed to her boutique. She didn't know that yet. She had never asked how I got the money. She had never thanked me. And now she'd learn. The next morning, while the wedding venue buzzed with excitement, I was miles away in my lawyer's office, preparing documents. And while my daughter was getting her hair curled into soft romantic waves, I was rewriting my will. But before the ceremony even began, someone interrupted it. Someone who knew everything. And they didn't come quietly. Do you want to know who crashed the wedding? And what they said that made guests walk out before she even walked down the aisle? I'll tell you. In the next chapter. If this story is cutting deep, if it's reminding you of your own sacrifices, or your own silent heartbreaks, don't stay quiet. Comment, I see you, Mama, if you've ever felt unseen. Subscribe to hear what happened when the truth finally shattered the silence. The next chapter is coming. Weddings are supposed to be about beginnings. Fresh starts, promises, joy. But this one began with silence. Not the quiet kind filled with awe. The kind filled with tension. Thomas had gone through with it, or at least let it look like he would. He stood at the altar, straight-faced, hands clasped, surrounded by golden roses and lace, while guests whispered about the bride's absence. My daughter Olivia was running late. Course she was. She liked entrances. The drama of being watched. But that day, she wasn't the only one with a plan. Thomas had slipped Alicia the cue. And just as the music swelled for the grand walk down the aisle, Alicia stood up. Clutching her phone in one hand and a printed speech in the other, she walked, not toward the bride, but toward the altar. Gasps erupted across the crowd. Olivia's college friends blinked. The groomsmen shifted nervously. The officiant stammered, "Miss, please." But Alicia raised one hand calmly. "I won't be long," she said, her voice echoing in the high-ceilinged venue. "I was asked to give a toast at the rehearsal dinner," she continued. "But there were people missing. Important people. People this wedding should have been centered around. Like the woman who raised Olivia Tanner into the woman you're all here to celebrate." People murmured. My niece told me later she felt the air in the room change. Alicia kept speaking. She was called the help in a bridesmaids group chat. She was banned from attending, not because she couldn't make it, but because the bride didn't want her ruining the aesthetic. That woman is Margaret Tanner. And she gave up everything, her money, her time, her youth, for this day to happen. Now there was no murmuring. Just silence. Dead, shameful silence. Until Alicia took out the letter. The very one Thomas had shown me. And she read it aloud. Every word. There were gasps. A woman at the back stood up and left. Few others followed. And when she was done, Alicia looked around the room and asked, If your mother raised you alone, sold her jewelry for your dreams, and still wasn't good enough to be called mom on your wedding day, would you be proud of this moment? The only person who answered was Olivia. She had walked in just in time to hear that last question. Dressed in white, her makeup flawless, veil pinned to perfection. She froze at the back of the room. All eyes turned. And Thomas. He stepped down from the altar. Straight toward her. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just said, "I can't do this. You're not the woman I thought you were." The silence was complete. She slapped him. Right there in front of everyone. And for the first time in 28 years, I didn't feel embarrassed for her. Felt free. The wedding never resumed. Guests left in awkward trickles. The caterer boxed up untouched meals. The string quartet packed their instruments in silence. But I wasn't there for any of it. I was at home, sitting on the porch, watering my hydrangeas. When Thomas pulled into the driveway later that night, I didn't say a word. Just poured him a glass of lemonade. He sat beside me, sleeves rolled up, eyes red but peaceful. "She's blaming you," he said softly. "I expected that." He nodded. "She'll probably come here. I'll cry." "I hope she does," I said. "'Cause I had something for her. A letter of my own. Not to scold her, but to remind her of the woman she used to be. The one who whispered "Mommy" when her nightmares came. The one who used to say, "When I get married, you'll walk me down the aisle." I had saved that letter for years. Now I was ready to give it back. But when Olivia finally showed up, it wasn't just anger in her eyes. It was something darker. Something I hadn't expected. She wasn't alone. And what she demanded that night on my porch would shake me to my core. Want to know what she came for? You won't believe it. I'll tell you in the next chapter. If you've ever been caught between love and dignity, between forgiveness and truth, this story is for you. Comment, "I won't be silenced," if you believe a mother's worth should never be forgotten. Like, share, and stay with me. The next chapter changes everything. She showed up after midnight. Headlights washed across my living room wall just as I was turning off the lamp. I peeked through the curtain and saw her car, still adorned with silk ribbons and "Just Married" scribbled in fading marker, though the wedding had never happened. Olivia stepped out slowly, heels in one hand, her gown bundled in the other. Her makeup was smeared now, her hair falling out of the once perfect bun. But it wasn't the mess on her face that struck me. It was the look in her eyes. Not grief, not remorse, but fury. Thomas stood up from my couch, but I placed a hand gently on his arm. "Let me handle this," I whispered. I opened the door before she had a chance to knock. We stared at each other in silence. She was still my daughter. Same hazel eyes, same high cheekbones, same stubborn chin. But in that moment, she looked like a stranger. "You ruined everything," she hissed, stepping into my home like it still belonged to her. "Do you know what you've done to me?" I didn't speak. "I'm a laughingstock now," she continued, pacing. The wedding was trending on TikTok for the wrong reasons. The sponsors pulled out, the boutique's page is flooded with hate comments, and Alicia, that snake, she's unreachable. She vanished after dropping her bomb. She turned to Thomas. "Ooh, you coward." He didn't say a word. But I did. "Why are you here, Olivia?" Her nostrils flared. "You owe me." And blinked. She stepped closer. "You think you're so noble now. Some kind of wounded mother. Please. I wouldn't even have that boutique if it weren't for me charming that investor. You just sign the check. And now, you think you can turn everyone against me." I was still calm. But inside me something churned. She was here for blood. And then she said it. "I want you to sign over the boutique to me. Completely. Publicly. Post it on your Facebook. Make it clear you had nothing to do with building it. I'll write the caption. You just hit post." Silence. Even Thomas looked stunned. "And why would I do that?" I asked quietly. "Because if you don't," Olivia snarled, "I will tell everyone that you've been emotionally abusive to me for years. That you've manipulated this entire narrative. People will believe me. Have followers. You're just an old woman in a house full of dusty photo albums. She smiled. Like that threat was supposed to work. She had no idea who she was talking to. Because what she didn't know was that I had already begun the process of transferring ownership. Not to her, but to someone else. Someone who deserved it more. Thomas looked at me, as if reading my thoughts. I stayed silent. Let her storm out. And she did, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. But before she left, she turned one last time and said, "This isn't over." She was right. Because what I did next would make her spiral. I didn't respond to her threats. I went straight to the bank the next morning. And finalized everything. The boutique. It now belonged to a young single mother named Vanessa, one of Olivia's former employees she fired for being too soft. Vanessa had cried in my kitchen once when Olivia accused her of stealing. I found out later Olivia had made it up, just to cut payroll. Vanessa now had the keys. The deed was signed. The website was transferred. And the press. Oh, the press was waiting. But what happened when Olivia saw the new store banner, Vanessa's Vintage, was something I never expected. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She vanished. For 3 days. No one could find her. But when she came back, she wasn't alone. She brought someone with her. Someone I never thought I'd see again. And when he stepped through my doorway, my knees buckled. Want to know who he was? And what secret Olivia revealed in front of him? Wait for next chapter. If this story is shaking something deep in your heart, please don't keep it to yourself. Like, comment she underestimated me. And share with someone who needs to hear this. Next chapter will blow the door wide open. You there? I hadn't heard his voice in 35 years. Not since the day he walked out of our lives. But now, there he was. Standing in my doorway behind my furious daughter, holding a leather bag and looking like a ghost I had long buried. His name was Raymond Tanner. My ex-husband. Olivia's father. The man who left us when she was 9. Only to send a postcard from Arizona 2 years later that read, "Hope you're doing okay." Nothing more. My legs wobbled. My heart pounded. He had the same deep-set eyes, the same commanding posture. But now there was gray in his beard, regret in his stance, and confusion etched all over his face. "Margaret," he started. I backed away instinctively, but Olivia stepped forward. "I brought him here," she said coldly. "To fix this." I stared at her. "Fix what?" "To talk sense into you. To remind you that you're not the only parent who matters." I laughed. Not out of humor. Out of disbelief. "You dragged a man who abandoned his child halfway across the country to win an argument over a store?" "He's still my father," she shouted. "And if you want the world to stop thinking you're some wounded, perfect saint, then maybe it's time they heard your side too. The whole side." Raymond looked between us, clearly overwhelmed. "Look," he said, raising his hands. "I didn't come here to fight. Olivia told me everything. I thought maybe I could help mediate." "Mediate what?" Snap. "You weren't there for her growing up. You didn't see the years she cried into my lap. The food I skipped to keep her fed. The nights I worked 2 jobs so she could go to dance camp. You have no idea what this is about." He stepped closer. "Maybe not. But I know pain when I see it. And right now, both of you are drowning in it." Pause. Because for a moment, he wasn't wrong. Olivia's eyes behind all that rage were tired, broken. And suddenly, she wasn't a bride or a business owner or even a daughter making demands. She was that little girl again. Abandoned. Confused. Afraid to be unloved. But that didn't excuse the cruelty. The betrayal. The way she erased me. "You want the truth," I said softly. "Fine. I wasn't a perfect mother. I was exhausted. I yelled sometimes. I couldn't give her ballet shoes every month. I fell asleep during school plays. I missed birthdays because I worked night shifts." Olivia looked away. "But I never stopped loving her," I continued. "And I never ever called her a burden." Raymond sat down slowly on the porch bench. "I came here," he said after a while. Because Olivia said you were taking everything from her. That you were trying to destroy her life. He turned to me. But I read that letter. He took it out of his bag. Still folded. Still damp around the edges. I also spoke to Alicia, and Thomas, and Vanessa. I didn't say a word. He leaned back. I think Olivia's mad at more than just you. That's when Olivia broke. I gave everything to you, she screamed at me, voice cracking. I gave you my youth. I stayed when my friends said you were too much. I pushed down how resentful I felt. But you just took. And when I finally had something for myself, you came for that too. Tears ran down her face now. Real ones. I didn't know how to love you without losing myself, she whispered. And when people started calling you the hero, I felt like I'd disappeared. The truth in her words hit me hard. But I also saw it clearly. How trauma doesn't disappear. It festers. Twists into something else. I reached for her hand. She flinched. Then held it anyway. We sat like that in silence. 3 broken pieces of a family trying to remember how we once fit together. I'm not giving you the boutique, I said gently. But I'm not erasing you either. You can heal Olivia. But you don't get to burn me to do it. Raymond stood up. Maybe both of you should take a break from the war. But it was too late. Because the next morning everything exploded. Olivia posted a video. One that went viral. One that painted me as a manipulative, toxic, jealous old woman who ruined her daughter's chance at love and success. And she included the photo of me from her boutique opening. Cropped, faded, and cold. What she didn't expect was the flood of comments defending me. People who knew the truth. People who had been erased by their own children. People who saw me, finally. But Olivia's video did more than stir emotions. It brought someone else out of hiding. A woman I hadn't heard from in decades. And her connection to Olivia's spiral would unravel everything. Want to know who she is? You'll meet her in the next chapter. If this chapter hit something real, maybe regret, maybe hope, comment below. Still standing. Like, share, and stay tuned. The next chapter reveals a family secret no one saw coming. Her name was Diane Wilcox. It had been nearly 40 years since I'd last heard her voice, and yet, when I picked up the phone and heard, "Margaret? It's Diane," I knew immediately who it was. She was the woman Raymond left me for. The reason Olivia's childhood cracked in half. The reason I spent so many nights crying into my pillow, clutching a wedding ring I eventually threw into the bottom of the kitchen junk drawer. But this wasn't a gloating call. Her voice shook. I saw the video Olivia posted, she said. And I couldn't stay quiet anymore. My body tensed, old grief rising like steam off hot pavement. What do you want? To tell you the truth, she said. About what really happened back then. And about Olivia. I didn't speak. Just listened. Diane explained how Raymond hadn't left me just because of love. He left because she was pregnant. With his son. A child he never told Olivia about. A child who was raised in secret, because Diane didn't want to interfere with Raymond's past life. My jaw clenched. You had a son with my husband, I said slowly. And never thought to mention it? I begged Raymond to tell you. He said he would. He never did. And now. He's dying. The words dropped like a bomb. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, she whispered. He only has months. Maybe weeks. Suddenly, my anger twisted into something more complicated. Grief. Compassion. Confusion. And Olivia? Yes. She doesn't know. Dan paused. She's about to lose the father she only just reconnected with. And she still doesn't know she has a brother. I sat back in my chair, the walls of my living room tilting ever so slightly. You're telling me this now because she's spiraling, Margaret. And I don't want her to drown without knowing the truth. Without understanding that she wasn't just abandoned. She was lied to. By all of us. The call ended, but the silence it left behind was deafening. I stared at the photos on my mantel. Me holding newborn Olivia in my arms. Her 6th birthday frosting on her nose. The day she graduated, refusing to hold my hand because her friends were watching. So much love. So much hurt layered over it like dust. Raymond returned later that day. He walks slower now. Looked thinner. Grayer. I didn't ask. He just nodded. You know, don't you? I nodded back. I want to tell her, he said. But I don't know how. She already thinks the world is against her, I whispered. This could destroy her. Or free her, he replied. We waited 2 days. Then I invited Olivia to the house. She came reluctantly, her face tired, her voice sharp, but somewhere in her eyes. I saw the child who used to curl up on my lap after school. I sat her down beside the fireplace. The one she used to hang her Christmas stockings on. Raymond sat across from her. Sweetheart, he began. I've lied to you. She blinked. What now? I have a son, he said. Silence. A half-brother, she asked, stunned. His name is Ethan. He's 35. Lives in Colorado. You have a nephew too. I watched her face shift. Confusion first, then fury, then something softer. Why now? She whispered. Because I'm dying, he said, voice cracking. And you deserve to know who you really are. Where you really come from. She sat still for a long time. Then turned to me. And you? You knew. Only recently, I said. You were going to let me grieve him all over again. I was going to let him tell you. She stood abruptly. I don't know what's real anymore. Then she ran upstairs, to the room she hadn't slept in since she left for college, and slammed the door. I didn't follow. Sometimes grief needs space. Thomas came by later that evening, bringing warm food and quiet support. She posted again, he said softly. Took down the video. Issued an apology. And blinked. To me. To everyone. But her followers were divided now. Some defended her. Some didn't. Some started digging deeper into her past. Into the things she said about her employees. About Vanessa. And then something wild happened. Someone leaked the audio from the bridesmaids group chat. And her sponsors. They pulled everything. The boutique. It was finished. But Olivia wasn't. She came downstairs around midnight. Ter Street. Barefoot. Shivering. I hated you for so long, she whispered. And I still don't know how to stop. I know, I said. But we can try. She nodded. And then, for the first time in years, she laid her head on my shoulder. But the peace didn't last. Because the next morning she was gone. Vanished. No note. No phone call. Just an empty bedroom and a missed call from an unknown number. When I finally listened to the voicemail, my heart stopped. It wasn't Olivia. It was Ethan. Mrs. Tanner, he said. I think your daughter's here. And I don't think she came to make peace. Want to know what she did next? Wait for the next chapter. If this story has taken you on an emotional roller coaster, you're not alone. Comment family cuts the deepest. If you've ever been hurt by someone you love, like, share, and get ready. The next chapter is the one you'll never forget. The message replayed in my head over and over. I think your daughter's here. And I don't think she came to make peace. Called back immediately. No answer. I tried again. Nothing. By the 3rd time my hands were trembling. I felt like I was right back in 1989, the night Raymond left, the night I clutched Olivia to my chest and promised her I would never leave, no matter how hard life got. And now. She had disappeared without a word again. Only this time she wasn't the one left behind. I sat frozen on my porch, staring into the dawn, barely aware that Thomas had arrived until I heard his voice. What's wrong? I handed him the phone, voice shaky. She's in Colorado. With Ethan. He frowned. You think she's angry? He nodded. She didn't go there to meet a brother. She went there to make a point. What kind of point? The answer came not even 2 hours later. Knock on the door. Courier. A large envelope marked urgent in all caps. It was legal paperwork. From Olivia. She had filed an emergency injunction to freeze the transfer of the boutique, claiming I was mentally unstable, emotionally coercive, and retaliating against her using inherited assets. I couldn't breathe. She wasn't just spiraling. She was trying to destroy me. The letter was signed not only by her, but by Ethan. I dropped into the chair like someone had kicked the wind out of me. Thomas sat beside me, stunned. But why would Ethan sign that? He doesn't know me, I whispered. And she's charming when she needs to be. She probably spun the story to sound like I was punishing her for the wedding drama, that I was manipulating the narrative. But she knows better, he said. She knows how to win, I replied. And for the first time in this entire storm I felt tired. Not angry, just tired. I had fought so many battles. For my daughter, for my family, for my dignity. Was this how it ended? Me in court defending my sanity, my choices, my legacy. Thomas stood and grabbed his keys. No, I'm not letting her do this to you. I'm going to Colorado. Blinked. What? She listens to me. Sometimes, I'll talk to her. I'll talk to Ethan. I'll show them who you really are. It was a beautiful offer. But I knew deep down, Olivia didn't want the truth. She wanted to win. But Thomas went anyway. And while he was gone, the world closed in. The papers arrived. The court dates were set. My bank accounts were frozen temporarily due to the injunction. Even my utilities were being questioned. She'd claimed I was losing grip on reality, and that the boutique was unsafe in my hands. Me. The same woman who scrubbed floors at night just to make sure she had clean shoes in the morning. The betrayal was complete. Until I got another call. This time from Vanessa, the woman I had gifted the boutique to. Her voice was shaking. She's here, she whispered. Olivia just walked into the store and told me I had 1 week to vacate. That the injunction would give her full control again. My blood turned cold. She threatened me, Margaret. Said she'd make sure no investor ever touches me again if I didn't step aside. Closed my eyes. Olivia had gone too far. I hung up and dialed one more number. Not my lawyer. Not Thomas. But a man named Michael Abrams. A retired journalist. And the father of one of my former students. He owed me a favor. I need you, I said. To tell a story. And I gave him everything. Every receipt. Every message. The boutique's origin story. My bank transfers. The boutique's early drafts, which were stored on my old laptop with timestamps showing I created the name and branding. And more importantly, the letter. The one where Olivia called me the help. Michael took the story and ran with it. By the time Thomas landed in Colorado, the article was already online. It was titled, "The Mother Behind the Boutique, Betrayed, Erased, and Finally Heard." Within hours it was viral. Not just on Facebook, but national news. Morning shows called me. Talk radio mentioned me. Former customers of Olivia's boutique began posting photos of the two of us together, tagging it, #NotTheHelp. But Olivia didn't go silent. She posted a video, crying, claiming I had set her up, edited her letter, weaponized the internet against her. Backfired. The comments turned. Even Ethan pulled back. Thomas called me that night from Colorado. "She's unraveling," he said. "I tried to talk to her. I really did. But she's accusing everyone now. Even me. Even her brother. She thinks we've all chosen sides." "She's right," I said softly. "I've finally chosen mine." And just when I thought it was over, I got a final message. From Raymond. Voicemail. He sounded weak. Barely above a whisper. "Margaret," he said. "She's gone." I woke up and she was just gone. The message ended with just 3 words. "I'm so sorry." What Olivia did next. Brought police to her brother's door. And a judge to my porch. Want to know why? Next chapter is where everything shatters. If you're still with me, still fighting for the mothers no one thanks, the elders erased from their own stories, comment, "Not the help." Like, share, and subscribe. Because next is justice. I barely slept that night. The voicemail kept echoing in my mind. "She's gone." Gone where? To do what? Thomas hadn't called back. Ethan was unreachable. Raymond was sick and alone in Colorado, unsure whether his daughter had run from pain or toward vengeance. I sat at my window in the dark, staring out at the moonlit hydrangeas. My hands trembled around a lukewarm cup of tea. My thoughts spiraled through every possibility. Would she disappear forever? Harm herself? Harm someone else? Or had she done something worse? The knock came just after sunrise. 3 firm raps. Not desperate like Thomas's. Not frantic like Olivia's. Just official. I opened the door to 2 officers. Uniformed. Stone-faced. "Ma'am, are you Margaret Tanner?" one of them asked. He nodded. "We're here under the authority of the Arapahoe County Court in Colorado. We have a subpoena for testimony and a request for voluntary questioning." Blinked. "Testimony for what?" The second officer stepped forward. "There's been a criminal report filed against your daughter, Olivia Tanner. It involves attempted coercion, identity fraud, and the illegal seizure of business assets. Your name is on the original incorporation documents." I felt the blood drain from my face. "She tried to take Vanessa's boutique by force," he said. "We have statements, witnesses, and security footage." The world blurred for a second. I reached for the doorframe to steady myself. "She impersonated you," he added. "Tried to revoke the transfer paperwork and claim you had dementia. She showed forged medical records." I nearly collapsed. She had gone that far. She was willing to declare me mentally unfit. To erase me not just emotionally but legally. "We need your help, Mrs. Tanner," the officer continued gently. "To clear your name. And to make sure this never happens again." I nodded, numb. "I'll come." They left me with papers to sign and a court date. And a choice. Stay quiet and let the system decide. Or step forward and speak. For myself. For the thousands of mothers whose love had been rewritten by selfish children. Chose to speak. The courtroom was small. Quiet. Ethan sat beside his father. Pale, solemn and silent. Raymond, now frail and hollow-cheeked, gave me a weak nod as I entered. Vanessa was there too, clutching her attorney's hand. But Olivia came in late, wearing black like it was a funeral, hair tied back, no makeup, not even a glare in my direction. She looked empty. The charges were read. Her lawyer attempted to spin a narrative, that Olivia had suffered emotional abuse, that she'd reacted out of trauma, that I had painted her as a villain and used the internet to humiliate her. But then they played the audio. The bridesmaids' chat. The voice recordings from Vanessa's shop. The tearful confession Alicia had sent as an affidavit. And finally the letter. The one where she called me the help. The judge listened carefully. And when it was my turn to speak, I stood with the weight of 1,000 sleepless nights on my shoulders. "I am not perfect," I began, voice shaking. "I was a tired mother. I was a grieving widow. I was a woman who gave everything to raise a daughter who forgot how to love me back. But I never lied. I never stole. And I never called her anything but mine." The courtroom was silent. "I didn't fight for the boutique out of revenge," I said. "I gave it away to someone who needed it. Because I was done being invisible." Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes. But I didn't stop. "This isn't about inheritance. It's about identity. About how we rewrite people's worth once we think we've outgrown them." I turned to the judge. "I'm not asking you to punish her. I'm asking you to see me. And protect what's left of my name." The ruling came swift. Olivia was stripped of any rights to the boutique. A restraining order was placed to protect me, Vanessa, and the shop. She was sentenced to community service and required to undergo therapy for emotional misconduct. The judge called it a wake-up call for a generation that forgets the shoulders they stand on. After court, Olivia walked up to me outside. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I didn't think you'd fight me," she said. "You always just took it." I looked her straight in the eye. "I finally remembered who I am." She nodded slowly. "I lost everything," she said. You lost yourself, I replied. Now go find her. And I turned away. I didn't cry. Not until I got home, stepped inside my quiet house, and found a small box waiting on the porch. No return address. Inside, a childhood photo of Olivia and me at her 5th birthday. And a note that read, "Maybe it's not too late. Love, oh." I didn't know if I believed her. But I knew this. I had survived. I had taken back my voice. And I was no longer the help. I was the woman who helped herself. And what happened 1 year later, on a quiet spring afternoon in my backyard, will leave you speechless. Want to know who showed up uninvited? And what they were carrying? I'll show you, in the final chapter. If this story has made you feel seen, please share it. Comment, "I found my voice," if you've ever had to fight for your worth. Final chapter is next. And it ends exactly how it should. It was a Sunday. The kind of quiet spring day where birds chirp without urgency, and sunlight falls soft through the trees like honey. I was in the backyard, wearing my wide straw hat and pruning the rosebush Thomas helped me plant last fall. The wounds of the courtroom had begun to scab over. I hadn't heard from Olivia in nearly 6 months. Not since the court ruling. Not since her teary note and that picture from her 5th birthday. I wasn't holding my breath. She had crossed lines that no apology could erase. And I had come to terms with the idea that closure might never come, that some mothers are meant to heal without ever hearing the words "I'm sorry." But then I heard the crunch of gravel. I looked up expecting Thomas. But it wasn't him. It was Olivia, dressed in jeans and a blue cardigan. No filters. No makeup. Just her. And beside her, little girl. Curly brown hair. Maybe 5 years old. The girl clutched a folded pink blanket in one hand and held Olivia's hand with the other. I dropped my pruning shears. Olivia stopped at the edge of the yard, looked down at the child and then looked up at me. "Her name is Marin," she said. "I named her after you." Quietly. Didn't think I deserved to say it out loud. My knees buckled but I didn't fall. I just stared. Marin looked at me with the kind of curiosity only children have. She stepped forward cautiously and said, "Are you the one who makes the blueberry bread?" Tears sprang to my eyes. He nodded. "I like bread," she whispered. "I'll make some," I said softly. "Would you like to help?" She nodded. And just like that, she crossed the yard and slipped her small hand into mine. Olivia followed slower. "I've been in therapy," she said. "A lot. I still don't have all the pieces. But I'm learning. About ego. About shame. About how I pushed away the one person who never let go." I didn't answer. We stood there quietly, watching Marin twirl in the grass. Then Olivia said it. The words I thought I'd never hear again. "Mom, I'm sorry." She didn't cry. And neither did I. I just nodded, took a deep breath and said, "Come inside. Let's bake." We spent that afternoon covered in flour, needing more than just dough. We needed years of hurt, of silence, of all the unspoken apologies between mothers and daughters. Thomas came by halfway through. He froze in the doorway, then smiled. "Is that?" He nodded. "This is Marin." He looked at Olivia. "You finally came home." She nodded. And when he sat with us at the table, when Marin passed him a sticky spoon covered in blueberry batter, we all laughed. Real laugh. A laugh that sounded like beginnings. Later that night, as the sun melted into the trees, Olivia pulled something from her purse and placed it on the kitchen table. A sealed envelope, with my name written in soft cursive. "What's this?" I asked. "My stake in the boutique," she said. "Whatever's left. Name, the rights, the website. I want it to be yours again. Or Vanessa's. Or whoever you think it belongs to. I'm done fighting. I just want peace." I slid the envelope back toward her. "You keep it," I said. "But use it right this time. Let it serve women like us, the ones who've been written out of their own stories." She nodded, biting her lip. "I will." The next morning they left early. Marin waved from the back seat. "Bye, Grandma." My heart cracked open at the word. I waved back, holding the porch rail for support. After the car disappeared down the road, I walked inside and sat quietly in my reading chair. Then I picked up the envelope Olivia left behind. She had slipped in a photo, one I'd never seen before. It was Olivia, maybe 16, standing in front of the boutique before it ever had signage. She was holding my old business plan in one hand, the one I'd typed on my clunky laptop and printed on cheap paper. On the back, scribbled in ink, were 6 words. I saw you. Even then. I pressed it to my chest. Not everything had healed. Some wounds would stay. But in that moment I knew this. I wasn't erased. I was remembered. Not as the help, but as the heart. If this story moved you, if you've ever felt invisible, betrayed, or just tired of giving without being seen, I want you to comment, "I am not forgotten." Share this with someone who needs to remember their worth. And above all, remember, it's never too late to be seen.